What's going on, guys? Welcome to In the Zone. I'm your host, Garrison Roy, and today we're going to go on a little bit of a rant on a couple of things. But if you're new to the podcast, we kind of do this based off of a value system. So if you get any value, any nuggets, or something that you think someone else needs to hear, please share the show because we do have several different types of segments to help out grow the game, help grow and elevate other people's performance as a player, as a coach, right? Obviously, the rants are some of the things that are just kind of more hot topics or things that I've been on. Other episodes, we have full-length interviews where we, interview experts, coaches, and athletes and talk about how they get in the zone. And then also deep dive educational explorations on either different training zones, skill acquisition zones, or even just overall mental training and things and how to help you perform at your best. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get into this one because obviously it's very near and dear to my heart. Um, and it's more on the topic of how players are overplaying and underprepared, right? And you generally think that, and everyone typically agrees, but no one really comes up with a solution. So I want to come to you all, regardless. And again, I'm not trying to sell my services, although I do have something to offer for that to help out with, athletes to help out with their overall physical readiness, and obviously through that mentorship program and through training, and the app helps kind of reveal some of their weak links and what we can accomplish going forward. But I kind of want to zoom out a little bit and talk a little bit more on the youth population and then graduate more towards the more higher level professional orgs. So we'll zoom out to, let's look at the youth baseball age, right? Kids are playing more than ever these days, and obviously, there's a lot less of them playing outside. There's more organized sports, which again, I think there's good and bad things for that. But even when you look at their normal day-to-day lives, obviously they're sitting in a classroom all the time in front of a lot of screens, and PE is kind of minimized depending on the school and what that looks like. If you don't play a sport, I think it's kind of laughable that they have some of these kids just say, hey, if you walk a mile around the track, you pass the class. You do that every single day. And I'm like, really? And you go back and you look at the 50s and 60s or of all these old-timey black and white videos, right, where you see guys just climbing on stuff and doing sit-ups and push-ups and all this stuff, and everyone's physically able to do it, right? Not saying that we need to make clones. You guys all, if you listen to this podcast, you know my stance on trying to make everyone the same, because everyone should have their own way or different way about going and doing things. So you don't want to look exactly like Star Wars clones is the one that I kind of reference to, because it's the easiest example of having everyone look the same, dress the same, say the right things, so on and so forth, right? Um, but not to get too philosophical and talk about like free will and other things like that. Again, kind of circling back to this athletic development, they're very limited in what they're exposed to just in daily life. And so I think as they're progressing into their sport, they're specializing a little bit more into that, which again, I have mixed thoughts on that. Obviously, at a young age, like K through second, third through fifth grade, they need to have all the types of different fundamental movements, have fun. Being able to go and just be active outside, I think, is a great place to be, right? Um, and then, fifth, sixth, seventh grade, they might need to probably have a little bit more organized ways about how to go things, or a little bit more focused approach. And then obviously eighth and upward through 12, again, talking through grade school here, right? You need a lot more focused approach for those guys. And then obviously through college and pro level, they're going to be even more specified through what they're going to be doing. So there's also certain specific, more tailored programs on what they would need. So again, kind of just overall here, I almost want to think of this as, hey, and we can put it in more financial terms of almost like building up a bank account, right? And the parents resonate with this really well whenever I tell them this, as far as trying to help develop an athlete. You want to help them be a little bit more physical, or that physicality. We're just like, hey, this kid just needs to get stronger. He just needs to do this, right? And it's all very true. And I think that can kind of correlate to, hey, this is just you paying the bills, right? So that's kind of your base foundation. When you're building a bank account, you're kind of just scraping to get by if you're able to have that general physicality box checked. But then the second one would kind of be more your skill acquisition, right? Or just more of like what you're specifically doing. And that's kind of more of supporting a family. So that's kind of like, okay, hey, now we're not just getting by, we're doing some other things to help support and have fun with whatever you're doing, whatever sport these guys decide to play, or whatever type of movement that they practice throughout daily life. And then the third one would be, like a financial freedom aspect of it, which again, literally and figuratively here with this one, when you have a little bit more perception action focused of what you're going to be doing as far as your training, you will have a little bit more financial freedom in the long run. If you're really, really good at what you do and you play professionally, you sign all these multi-million-dollar contracts, you definitely will have both of those in movement and in real life, right? If you play your cards right. So I think of it that way, where it's like, okay, hey, we got to learn how to just get a general base of income, or start to have those building blocks of movement. And no one really has described to me for the younger ages what those building blocks are. And I came across Jeremy Frisch. He has a really awesome follow on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it. And I think he posts some stuff on Instagram as well. And I'll put that in the comments here. But he takes an awesome approach to guys who are, he calls it different levels of how they're doing things. But it's almost like where guys are going in and basically having a controlled playground in essence, right? These guys, especially K through second, they're being active. They have games that they're playing. They're relaying around. They're running. They're jumping. And, as they're growing older, they're learning how to balance. So you're giving them specific skills, or they're maybe grappling, wrestling, things that we probably did as kids. And we were just kind of roughhousing with our brothers or our siblings. And we're just kind of doing that on the regular. But now we're so zoned in on screens that we kind of miss out on some of that, right? Or, just general locomotion. And I try to put that in almost all my athletes programs, even the pro guys, right? Because they're needing to learn to move better, regardless of whatever the means that you choose, whether that's lifting weights or, doing something a little bit more, people call it more functional, quote, when I say that in quotes, right? Because it's more based around how a normal human should move. And that's the whole point. After you're done with this whole training for a sport thing, you want to be able to still move whenever you're 50, 60, 70 years old, right? And not have too many aches and pains. Obviously, injuries happen, things of that nature do happen, but you want to be able to utilize your body as best as you can, right? And not have as many limitations if that's due to you not moving. You have that old adage of if you don't use it, you lose it. And I think that's very true for movement, right? So, you have all these little introductory things. You can teach these guys how to jump, how they are supposed to land after they jump, right? Because we would be climbing on trees, coming down, and them being exposed to these things can help them adapt and help them learn how to just be better humans, be better movers. Because I think if we're putting all these kids in a glass case and we're like, oh, you have to land a certain way, or you have to do this or that, right? You don't want to be too specific and overcoach it, but you do need to expose them to these stresses, because and that's my opinion as to why some of these younger kids are having growth plate injuries and things like that. Again, a lot of it can be kind of put into this box of, okay, yeah, that's from overuse, but they're also not getting enough just general physical preparedness to where when they do all of these very, very specific movements in their sport, they don't have any foundation to back that off of. So if you want to think of it in that bank account aspect, they're not paying the bills and they're trying to support a family. Like it's just not going to work, right? Like you got to get some type of foundation in first, right? To be able to do all that. And, in one of the previous podcasts, we talked about having a better relationship with the ground, or just the general GPS, general pattern system that you would have ingrained. Because walking is something that you would typically be able to do pretty easily, but being able to get up off the ground as we get older, we don't spend much time on the ground anymore, right? So I think like things like a Turkish get up, or even just, hey, get up off the ground. How well or how many different ways can you move and get up off the ground is a very awesome exercise to do, a great warm up for people, because they have to control their core. They have to find different ways to move and open up different ranges, not necessarily for mobility's sake, but just to be like, hey, I'm exposing my body to different patterns, different movements. Then you can get into the specifics of throwing, catching, hitting, shooting a basketball, kicking a ball, whatever it might be. Climbing rocks. I think they're really great. Or even, like I said, playing games, relays, and obstacle courses can help a lot with just general physical preparedness. And I think that's really, really lacking. And really, if you really want to boil it down, when just humans in general are starting to work out more, they're being a little bit more physical. Obviously, their movement and their skill, their coordination improves. If you're just kind of starting from a couch potato aspect, then their cardio health also comes along with that. Their body composition will change, right? And I'm a big advocate of like challenges like, or programs like 75 Hard, because you're getting people active, you're getting them moving, you're helping them stay and develop kind of a movement practice or a way on how they're going to use their body and not just be a couch potato. I use that phrase a lot, but it's like, hey, like you got to get active, you got to keep moving. It doesn't have to be a pickleball, or us as former athletes, we always try to pick something that's a little bit more competitive to help keep our edge and want us to continue to go out there and do things. But sometimes it's just, hey, can you walk a different way? Can you try to move your spine this way, right? I talked about spinal waves in a previous episode, and I highly recommend you guys to go back and look at that. But having a movement practice, doing certain different types of movement, and not being so stuck on one thing, because as we get older, that's almost like us as specializing for younger athletes, right? So again, very broad spectrum here, where I'm kind of talking about youth athletes, but this also applies to us after we're done, right? That's why you see all these injuries through CrossFit and things like that, because they're doing very specific exercises over and over and over again. Yes, they're having quote unquote overuse injuries, but hey, what else are you doing to expose your body to different stimulus? Are you, doing some other type of tumbling or jumping or something to just help your brain really even be more active? And that's another byproduct, right? When you're being more physical with your body and you're moving around more, you have a lot more success. And there's research behind this with younger kids with academics, or even their general behavior, their mental health. For them to be able to continue to move and groove and use their bodies, everything else works better, right? So again, this is a little bit of all over the place, but I'm really boiling this all down to, we need to expose our younger athletes to different stimuluses other than just this, very almost, I said this clone, but like just everyone doing the same thing, or everyone has to move as one specific perfect way, or everything that they do has to be baseball specific, quote unquote. And I don't necessarily agree with that. And back in the day, whenever I was coming up, I may have subscribed to that, type of mindset. But now it's like, hey, let's develop the human. Let's develop the athlete as a whole, and then let them specialize in whatever their heart desires. Help them not be incapable of doing certain things. Help them learn how to solve problems, learn how to be different movers through different things. And again, I'm getting ready to launch this for especially some of the younger kids in the area that I live. But I'm a huge advocate for this anywhere, regardless of wherever you live. You need to get outside. You need to move your body. Don't be stuck playing video games all the time and expect to be better at any sport, really, or expect to not hurt, expect to not have injuries when things come about. You can imagine some of these guys who are like major league gamers. They're also getting mobility and like strength and conditioning programs, because that also stimulates their brain, because they're sitting in a chair, they're hunched over, they're doing all this stuff, right? But they got to expand. They got to be able to move And that also helps open up different things for their brain and how it works. Getting blood flow to places helps things work. When there's no blood flow, things get stagnant, there's inflammation. Inflammation turns into, a domino effect for other things. So, huge, huge, huge on this. I think this isn't stressed enough. Everyone just kind of goes straight to the whole pitch count rule thing. And yes, that does play a factor, but I think it's a load of BS if you do not look at the total athlete of what they're physically ready to take on and tackle. So that's my rant for today. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and stay in the zone.